13th of July, a gas pipeline was blown up 3,000 kilometers from Moscow. Western Siberia is under attack. Wow. Holy shit. Friends, the SBU carried out the Special Operation Web 2. The last submarine of the Black Sea Fleet has been damaged. The SBU and the armed forces of Ukraine continue the web operation. Maybe a factory? A factory? Take a look at what's there. We're screwed. God, SBU, don't stop! Ukraine is striking the Black Sea Fleet, the Pacific Fleet, oil refineries, and military airfields. An oil refinery is burning in Russian Kstovo. A drone just hit the Lukoil facility in Kstovo. Damn, it's huge. Look, it's going over there, what? A massive ship. Russian. Attacks have now begun on all of Russia's major Northern Pacific and Black Sea fleets. The SBU and the Ukrainian armed forces are attacking military airfields, nuclear submarines, and the Russian Navy. Everything is on fire. Even the ocean is sinking for us. There he goes again, look. No Russian naval fleet can effectively hide from the relentless Maluka sea drones and the vigilant SBU. We'll discuss all this with top analyst Alexander Demchenko right now. About yourself. Was that a flyover? The special operation by the Ukrainian armed forces, SBU and UR continues. Gas pipelines have been blown up 3,000 kilometers from Moscow. Western Siberia is under attack. Ukraine is striking the Black Sea Fleet, the Pacific Fleet, oil refineries, and military airfields. Last night, the oil refinery in Russia's Kstovo was burning and is still burning. There are powerful explosions and fires there. This is a new phase of the war, and it is already being felt in Moscow. Moreover, at the end of this month, Germany is supplying Ukraine with secret superweapons missiles that can reach Moscow and St. Petersburg. Thousands of drones are attacking Russia, Moscow, and St. Petersburg. And this is only the beginning. Oh! Nights in Russia are like a war zone. Here comes the second UAV. A lot of them are flying toward the city. It hit hard and landed right on target. Oh, the second one. Nah. Seriously. So, that's it. Now the third one is on fire. Oh! We have analyst Alexander Demchenko here with us. Sasha, hello.
Hello, Dasha. Hello, everyone.
Sasha, so here are the top news stories. The Germans said that the missiles will arrive any day now and will be able to strike Moscow and St. Petersburg. A gas pipeline in Siberia has been blown up, and submarines have been attacked. I read them, and the most interesting news, the one I liked, a symbolic collapse, the Admiral Kuznetsov, Russia's only aircraft carrier, might be decommissioned and scrapped. What do you think?
I'll say that the catastrophe is only just beginning. We're at the very start of this path. For Putin, of course, August will be a black month, and absolutely black. I told you last time that August would be the end for him. He's done for. Just look at what's happening. In just a few days, the situation has changed dramatically. The New York Times got their headline right. The cover says it all. Putin ruined everything. Putin screwed up and made a mess for himself. You see, in the Kremlin day, in the portable toilet, what am I trying to say? That, of course, there will now be massive attacks on Russia and especially on Moscow. Ukraine will get those missiles and there will be strikes. But most importantly, Dasha, most likely Trump, who has decided to expropriate an extra $5 billion from Putin. Just now, news came in that he plans to seize Putin's frozen assets. And Trump will start and Europe will follow. There are 300 billion in Europe. So most likely Trump has given Ukraine, has already given Ukraine attention, has already given Ukraine the green light to strike Moscow, to hit decision-making centers with missiles. Now, out of nowhere, Patriots will start arriving from Norway and Germany. 3 units. Interesting. And who gave permission? Wasn't it the Americans? At the same time, Germany will hand over long-range missiles to Ukraine, which for a long time, for a very long time, were prohibited. Attention! And who gave the green light for this, if not Washington? That's why Putin is now in for a series of the harshest surprises. the Ukrainian military, the armed forces of Ukraine, have already avenged that 1-year-old boy from Kherson by killing all those who destroyed that poor innocent child. I will probably remember for the rest of my life this image of the burned down sports arena will always be before my eyes. All those people who killed have already gotten what they deserve. Now there will be a very tough response for absolutely everything, because this past week has shown every Trump in the White House, all of Washington, and the Europeans that it's time to put an end to Putin. It's time to finish with Putin. Now, Siberia is on fire, and there are explosions at gas pipelines. These are the pipelines that supply military units and military factories. We need to explain what kind of gas pipelines are these. These are the lines that supply gas production, which in turn directly powers Russia's defense enterprises. They have been blown up. This is ours. This is us. Just think. To what extent do you have to lose your mind and play with fire so that now all of Siberia is burning, and not for the first time? So that in Azerbaijan there will be a NATO base. In Finland there are NATO bases. In Ukraine there are British and French armies. And after the ceasefire, which he is being forced in, troops from 28 NATO member countries will enter Ukraine. Well, you see, when I look at this, I just as what I realize. Either Vladimir Putin is a CIA agent and is simply handing over his country to America, or there's going to be a coup in the Kremlin very soon, maybe even starting in August, because no one has ever given away Russia the way he's giving away Russia. No one has ever given away Russia like this, you understand? He's just giving everything away, absolutely everything. If NATO look, Putin fought to make sure that NATO bases wouldn't be stationed on Russia's borders, so that the minimum flight time to Russia would be 7 minutes. Now, the flight time to Russia is already 2 minutes. NATO troops are already on Russia's borders. The NATO army is already practically stationed near St. Petersburg. It has surrounded it. Do you understand? They're putting St. Petersburg under encirclement, under blockade. So what? And what? So I think that in August, we're facing not only the collapse of the Russian Federation's economy, the beginning of a major economic crisis, we're facing not only Trump's rampage, who will force Putin to bend over into a very indecent and unpleasant position, bent in half into the Zhou pose, but we're also facing a political catastrophe and a crisis in the Russian Federation. I think that a coup d'etat, perhaps even a military one carried out by a military junta, is not far off.
I'm curious, Sasha, our audience, give this video a like, and in the comments, write who you think will carry out this military coup. Comment. Let's go. Sasha, who is even capable, mission impossible of pulling this off?
I almost said Vladimir Rudolfovich Solovyov. Lately, he's been talking about Trump's pout quite a lot. He has some very strange fantasies. I don't know, Dasha, do you ever dream about Trump's pout? Personally, I don't know why Vladimir Solovyov dreams about it. He needs to be dreaming about Putin's ass and his lips. What do Trump's lips have to do with anything? There are some really strange fantasies going on there. But by the way, I can't help but think that Solovyov is a sleeper agent for Malyuk, a sleeper agent for the Ukrainian security services. He's supposed to wake up and destroy their main boss, the head of the mafia, Putin. Seriously, though, if we're being serious, what we've seen lately, I mean the murder of Starovoa, the minister of transport in Russia.
Yes.
This changed everything completely. Now, the Shemezov clan is already under threat and will continue to be. This whole story with the wreath, when Putin sent a wreath, Rhode Island and Novosti reported it, Peskov confirmed it, then Putin said he hadn't sent anything. RIA Novosti deleted the report. Peskov shaved his mustache and said Putin hadn't sent anything. And 9 officials, led by Kemzov 9 ministers, with Kemzov the head of Rostek, and until recently one of Putin's closest allies, at the forefront, showed up at the funeral, making it clear that this was a blow to their clan, to Kemezov's clan, to the clan of that Silovik who opposes Patrushev and Sechin and speaks about the need for reconciliation, about a pause in the so-called war. This means that the hawks have set their sights on those so-called peacemakers. And now there will be a major showdown. At least half of Russia's elite will be wiped out in the near future. There will be big bloody purges. Putin will be killing, throwing people out of windows, imprisoning, whatever you can imagine. He's going to do it now. And this Kemezov clan, I think these 9 ministers who voted with their feet and staged this kind of mini mutinya public humiliation of Putin'S, were directly protected by Rothenberg and Kemezov, whose transport revenue streams were seized today and transferred to the Kovalchuks and directly to Putin himself, yes, putting all that money from the Russian Ministry of Transport straight into his own pocket. I think that now a massive purge will begin, and at least half of Russia's elite is currently under threat. And now, attention, the question is who will get whom? Putin has already made the first move. Putin has struck a blow. Putin has struck a blow against certain Kremlin factions. Now, a blow will come from them. Now, the other side will strike back. So we will find out who will be left standing in the end. I think that Putin will now resort to absolutely repressive methods. The entire repressive apparatus, the whole Lubyanka, all the security forces will be mobilized. But the question is, who will stand against him? I suspect that there will now be very large-scale mass crackdowns. It will simply be a bloodbath in Moscow, near the Kremlin, with the whole Kremlin being turned upside down. I don't know, Dasha, whether we'll wake up to the news that tanks have entered Moscow, that Putin has lost communication, that the Kremlin is without power and surrounded, and that a military junta has taken power with the money of certain Russian oligarchs and certain Russian security officials. But it seems to me that there will now be very large purges in Moscow and a real bloodbath because the board has been flipped, because Putin has done something that no one has done since the days of Stalin. There was an unspoken agreement right after Stalinot to destroy your own, not to destroy your own. Putin decided to take everything and reshuffle it. The problem is that if these same people don't stop him now, don't neutralize, remove, or destroy him, however it may be, whether they send him off to a Dasha, seal him up in a bunker, in a portable toilet, or remove him, whatever it takes. If they don't deal with him now, he will simply destroy them all. So now we are watching Russia very closely. There will be major showdowns. There are big bloody mess in Moscow in the near future.
Sasha, there was a very interesting story when for 3 days in a row we attacked Moscow and St. Petersburg with drones. After that, Russian war correspondents wrote that they had information that Ukraine was preparing a strike with 1,000 drones on Moscow and St. Petersburg. Then Nevzorov reported that Moscow's air defense system Pantsir had started attacking a civilian airplane. Now, this information hasn't been confirmed, but it did appear, and they are jamming communications, jamming the internet. And here's the main question. Could Putin stage a terrorist attack in Moscow and St. Petersburg? Could they shoot down their own plane? And why are they jamming communications? And could this also be a trigger for certain turbulence or terrorist attacks orchestrated by Putin himself or the FSB?
They are jamming communications because everyone thinks this is how they fight against unmanned aerial vehicles, against drones. In reality, they jam communications so all of Moscow and big cities know and see nothing. This is just another thing they do. Obviously, this jamming of communications doesn't really help them much. That's the first point. The second point, as for this particular strike, we've talked about this for a long time about the passenger plane, the Belarusian one, by the way. Dasha, we've discussed for a while now the fact that Vladimir Putin and his agencies, the security services, the FSB, Lubyanka, and others are preparing a series of mass terrorist attacks on the territory of Moscow. This signal, when a drone fell near Vnukovo, in a courtyard close to Vnukovo airport, when people were kept waiting, not allowed to leave, and there was a carpet plan in place, they weren't allowed outside the airport, not even beyond the airport grounds. That is not just the terminals, but the entire airport ground. So what we're saying is that, yes, a terrorist attack is being prepared, most likely targeting airports. Most likely, all these key airports like Sheremetyevo, Domodedovo, Zhukovsky, Vnukovo, Pulkovo are under significant threat. Most likely, yes, they are planning to destroy a passenger plane on their own territory, preferably a foreign one. They destroyed the Azerbaijani plane and tried to pin it on someone else. It didn't work. Now they tried to pin it on the Belarusian plane. It didn't work either. They're preparing for it. They're preparing some kind of series of sabotage acts, provocations, blowing up planes, destroying them, shooting them down, destroying airports, like when one of their anti-missiles falls on an airport, killing thousands of people, to blame it on Ukraine, to escalate the war, to intensify the situation, to force everything, and cancel the contract-based mobilization, switching the army to a conscription mode. There's no point in paying the cannon fodder anymore. That's what they've already calculated in the Kremlin. The truth is, they don't have any money. They don't have money to keep the war and defense going in the current mode until the end of this year. So now they have a choice. Either give their people money or send these people as cannon fodder for free, risking their own regime in the process. But at the same time, giving money to their security forces, because Vladimir Putin's regime is built on the security apparatus. That's the second point. Third, When he struck the Belarusian plane, you know what I thought, Dasha? That was actually a kind of signal to Lukashenko. We could wake up one fine day and for no apparent reason, Russia's air defense forces, their anti-missile systems, could just strike, especially since they have them in Belarus at a Belarusian plane, at the plane of the head of state, at Lukashenko himself. Lukashenko doesn't want to directly fly, sorry. He doesn't want to directly help Putin in the war. Well, what does it mean to have? To openly enter the war? He doesn't want to send his army against Ukraine or directly against the Baltic countries. Yes, he lets Putin's German drones pass through his territory to the Lithuanian border, where they explode right before reaching Lithuania. But he doesn't want to take too many risks. He doesn't want to risk it because he understands as soon as Putin starts some kind of war with his help, Lukashenko will be ousted. Lukashenko, his family, his inner circle, they will lose all their money, all their property, and no one will help them. He won't have time to escape to Saudi Arabia or the United Arab Emirates or China, where he's been moving his money lately. That's why I wouldn't be surprised if Putin threatens Lukashenko like this. We recently discussed a very strange, some kind of strange coincidence, right? When the Azerbaijani plane was shot down, and at the same time, the plane of Azerbaijan's leader, Ilham Aliyev, was taking off. Now, there's also an interesting situation on a Belarusian plane. So is this a signal to Lukashenko or not? Basically, is it a signal that says you have a plane too, I can shoot it down, so are you going to join me in the war or not? This is really interesting. Moreover, I thought that Lukashenko, just like everyone else, like Shoigu, like Gerasimov, like Patrushev, who was removed, like Kadyrov, whose situation is unclear, whether he was poisoned or just fell ill like that. Like, for example, General Surovikin, who had all his kidneys, his liver, his lungs beaten, his ribs broken, and was sent to Africa. Then his wife barely managed to save him from the basements. And so on down the list, General Spartak. All those people who were involved in the Prigozhin affair have in one way or another been disposed of. Shoigu, for example, is now under threat after Surovikin. I think he will be next, or General Gerasimov will be next. One of them would be publicly executed in the near future. But all those people who were involved in the Prigozhin affair in one way or another, whether on the opposing side or supporting Prigozhin, they have all been disposed of, neutralized in one way or another. Only Lukashenko remains. And I think that now Putin will actively go after Alexander Lukashenko. And right now, this is not beneficial for Ukraine, because what is definitely not needed is for Putin to officially install his own Gauleiter in Belarus, some lieutenant colonel or colonel, another security officer, who would then directly orchestrate the entire war from that territory. This is something that absolutely no one needs, not Ukraine, not Europe, not NATO, not America. And it's not for nothing. It's not by chance that Kellogg visited Belarus. It's not by chance that he held talks with Lukashenko. Most likely, they are trying to dissuade Lukashenko from siding with Vladimir Putin and China. And finally, regarding drones, everyone missed an important piece of news. I believe this is actually the most important news of the week. The US Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, made a statement. He recorded a video. The video was widely circulated. Pete Hegseth and a drone flying nearby.
I saw it, yes.
You saw it, right? Everyone was laughing, but the most important thing wasn't what was shown, but what he actually said. So what did the US Secretary of Defense say? First, the US will be the world's key country, the most powerful country when it comes to drones. The US is becoming a drone nation. Second, 3 additional huge drone testing grounds are being opened in America. And third, the most important point, for the US, small drones are now considered munitions, just ordinary ammunition. This means they are not counted, that they can be used, replenished, and, well, so to speak, and they are not considered a separate type of weapon. In other words, they can be written off without issue. It doesn't matter how many strikes you make or how many of these drones you use. What does this mean in practice? That Ukraine will eventually receive millions of these drones, millions. And so, as you ask, thousands of drones will fly toward Moscow. Tens of thousands of drones will be flying all over Russia. There is no other option. Right now, Vladimir Putin, with the help of the Chinese and North Koreans, is also receiving artillery shells. Just recently, South Korea reported that North Korea has already sent Putin 12 million artillery shells, if I'm not mistaken. China is building a factory in the Khabarovsk region, or I think they've already built it, for drone production. Thousands of drones, right? So right now, there's no other option but to send these drones to Ukraine, to make it the most powerful drone country in America, in the Americas. And to give Ukraine the opportunity to test out modern new American technologies on Russia. So I think Ukraine will get everything it needs, not just long-range missiles, but also drones. And Moscow, of course, will be ablaze. Moscow and all the other key centers, including decision-making centers.
Dear audience, top analyst Dasha Demchenko and I work together twice a week on Tuesdays and Sundays. Our format is Dasha plus Sasha, Sasha plus Dasha. Let us know in the comments what you think about our tandem. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, subscribe to Dmitry Gordon's YouTube channel where Alexander Demchenko appears, and let us know in the comments what you personally expect from the drone and missile war. A very important topic that I would like to focus on, Sasha, is that the US is no longer restricting strikes, and that Germany has officially confirmed that starting in July, Ukraine will receive long-range missiles capable of destroying airfields, headquarters, and depots on Russian territory. Right now, for example, an oil refinery in the Krasnodar region has been blown up. A gas pipeline in Khanty-Mansi Autonomous Okrug, the Black Sea and Pacific fleets have been attacked, and the Admiral Kuznetsov is being scrapped. When we talk about this, Ukraine is now gaining an advantage, especially considering what Trump said on Monday. I will make a decision that will bring defeat to Russia. He hinted at this. What do you think?
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine today. Join us now.
I think the boat has been flipped over. When the Chancellor of Germany says that the time for diplomacy is over, it means they've bet on war. They're ready to fight. That is, for the first time in the past 6 months, actually, I would say in the past 3.5 years. Because for 3.5 years, the bet was on containing Russia. They thought they could come to an agreement with Putin, persuade him, appease him, and conduct some parallel negotiation. There were different iterations. Biden had his own approach. Trump had his own. Each had their own format. The Europeans, it's unclear what they were thinking all this time. But now the bet has been placed on war. They are ready to encircle Putin, to twist him up like a ball, right? That's why things are going to get very tough for Putin now. And it's not for nothing that Lavrov requested urgent talks with Rubio. It's not for nothing that they had 2 conversations on the sidelines of ASEAN in Malaysia. It's not for nothing that Putin has minimized strikes on Ukraine. It's not for nothing that Kyiv Kellogg is going directly to Kyiv and, according to some reports, will be in Kyiv for a whole week. In other words, we're seeing a completely different reaction. Well, because everyone is fed up with Putin. Because when you brazenly, on US Independence Day, slap the American president in the face with his own soiled underwear, just expect that tons of piss will be poured right back in your face. That's all there is to it. That's exactly what we've just seen. And that's exactly what we are going to witness in the near future. No one is going to stand on ceremony with Putin anymore. As for the Admiral Kuznetsov, that was the only Russian aircraft carrier, and it was under repair for an absurdly long number of years. And in Russia, they honestly admitted, we are not capable of repairing it. Why can't they repair it? Here's the question. No spare parts, no capabilities, no professional engineers all eaten up by sanctions. Most notably, no money. There's no money for those outrageously expensive aircraft carriers. But what about those plans to build several aircraft carriers, carrier groups, to catch up with America? And what about all that talk that supposedly we're outpacing China? Let's go ahead and get ourselves some carrier groups. There will be no more carrier groups in Russia, and there will be no more aircraft carriers in Russia. You'll be fighting with barges. That's it. You'll be hauling watermelons on those barges. There won't be anything else. Nothing. Everything is being scrapped. Everything is being scrapped. Yes, if it weren't for the Chinese, North Koreans, and Iranians, Russia would have long since been brought to its knees and begging for mercy. Well, maybe not begging for mercy, but in any case, to be serious, it would have gone and signed a peace agreement. China is helping. The North Koreans are helping. Iran isn't helping as much anymore. They've already seen what Vladimir Putin's word is worth, as he now brazenly wants to take Iran's nuclear technology and transfer it to himself. That's the kind of peacemaker he is. How about we give Iran another Budapest memorandum, this time performed by Putin, you see? We'll take the nuclear technology, move it to Moscow, to the Kremlin, so you can have another red button, or so that red button gets even bigger. But no matter how you look at it, Dasha, all of this shows that Putin doesn't have any money. The budget deficit is already at 4 trillion. They say that if Trump imposes sanctions, the deficit will be 7.5 trillion. That's an enormous amount of money. Moreover, Gazprom has $1 trillion in debt. It's bankrupt. All of Russia's key enterprises are bankrupt. Every third car dealer in Russia is out of business. A third of taxi drivers in Russia are already out of work. The mortgage market has dropped exactly threefold. Putin has devoured $350 billion, already 15% of his economy. Hellish sanctions will take out 30 to 40% of his economy. Oil production in Russia has fallen by 30 to 35%. No revenue in the budget. What are we even talking about? What are we talking about? Putin has no money, but he still needs to feed his security forces. And what does that mean? First, it means he will start cutting, stop giving out money, stop paying, stop making payments to his cannon fodder. That's the first thing. Second, it means that Vladimir Putin will simply reshuffle his entire top leadership. He will shake up this leadership, redirect the financial flows to his own family, to his inner circle, taking these flows away from his oligarchs. Just recently, they took a gold miner, one of the most important Russian oligarchs, and took away his Ural gold mining enterprise. They're already taking the gold. They're already taking the agriculture. What are we even talking about? Putin doesn't have any money. He has to find this money somewhere. He needs to get this money from somewhere. And he will take this money from the Russian people. That's all there is to it. So this whole mess will be over. If Trump, not just in words, but in action, puts Putin in a really tough spot, the war will end soon. Right now, Trump has the power to change everything and turn the whole board over. I hope that the board will be completely flipped. And Putin is very scared right now. He has finally realized that he went too far. And he shouldn't have done that.
Sasha, I want us to spend the last 5 to 8 minutes talking about Trump as well. But before that, there's an important topic, the Kerch Bridge, the Crimean Bridge, occupied Crimea. This is very important considering that now the Germans will provide us, as I understand it, that with German money, we have produced our own weapons and so on, and it will be ready by the end of this month. Will the new weapons strike the Kerch Bridge, or will the Taurus, Storm Shadow missiles, or long-range Neptunes damage the Kerch Bridge enough for it to be a very serious political and military blow to Putin?
Listen, the destruction of the Kirkuk-Crimean Bridge is inevitable. Anything that's unsightly, that doesn't fit architectural design, that was built according to Stalinist templates, must be destroyed and will be destroyed. You understand, Dasha? Here's the situation. There is no other option but to drive out the Russian Black Sea Fleet, Russian bases and Russian military from the territory of occupied Crimea. As soon as Putin loses Crimea, or everyone realizes that Crimea is under threat, this regime will immediately collapse. Everyone is well aware of this. Yes, so when he is now transferring weapons, anti-missile, anti-aircraft systems, and so on from the Donbass, which he and his criminal troops have occupied, to the territory of the Crimean Peninsula, he is demonstrating two things to everyone. First, that he is short on weapons. Second, that Crimea is the most important thing for him. If we consider all the occupied Ukrainian territories well, aside from the whole of Ukraine, but the British have already written that he would have to wait 99 or 100 years, and he won't live to see that. That's an obvious. I think his family will poison him with those little pills, and they'll carry on his life. Next. You see, this also shows that he doesn't care about the occupied territories or any of those people. He's willing to sacrifice those people in Donbass and so on, in all the occupied territories of Ukraine, just to keep Crimea. And the strike on Crimea and the strike on that bridge, these are absolutely inevitable things. The bridge will fall. The bridge will be destroyed. Maluk is already sitting there. Last time, he was counting. We discussed this with you. 200, 400 kilograms of explosives. Well, fine. They calculated it. 400 didn't work. So it'll be 10,000 tons. That's all there is to it. All of them already have plans there. None of this is happening by accident. Have you noticed that not a single Western representative from Washington to Brussels to London has said anything about the Crimean Bridge, the explosions, the strikes on Crimea, and so on? This means that everyone is in agreement on everything. There are no more prohibitions. All restrictions have been lifted. There will be strikes. German missiles, French missiles, British missiles, and American missiles. Everything will go forward. They'll strike the occupied territories, the Kerch Bridge, and Moscow. Every place where decisions are made, where strikes are launched, will be burned. There is no other option here. And Vladimir Putin is to blame for this. This is what Russian officials and Russian citizens need to understand. Vladimir Putin is the reason for all of this. And the New York Times is absolutely right when it wrote, Putin ruined everything. The good times are over. There is no more romance, no more honeymoon, or whatever you want to call it. No more. The bride has left. For Putin, this is where it all ends.
So the question is, who exactly is the bride in this tandem? Sasha, let's clarify Trump or Putin.
Well, Trump acted like the bride for quite a while, but then apparently he decided to switch roles a bit. Now, yes, now Putin is left without the traitor, not the bride. You see?
So a few words about the bride Trump. So tomorrow, Monday, Trump will be making a statement. Very important information indeed. Keith Kellogg will be in Kyiv all this week. And now the question, will Putin attack Kyiv while Keith Kellogg is in Ukraine? Will Putin attack Ukraine, Masyanov, to show Trump's bride that he meant him? And then what? How might Trump react? This is very interesting and very important. Sasha, the floor is yours.
Dasha, as we're speaking right now, I don't know how Trump will react. I don't know if Putin will start shooting while Kellogg is in Kyiv. I hope not. Because if he's insane and if he wants Trump to twist his arm, well, to strike against the backdrop of Trump's speech, if he does it again, meaning if he did it on the 4th of July, he could do it again, but that would be his last strike. He'll have his last laugh and his last moment of ecstasy. Understand? This will be the last time Putin smiles. Because after that, Trump, if there were any escape routes left, no one will be holding anyone back anymore. Neither Trump will restrain Congress, nor Congress will restrain Trump. But right now, the most important news just came in while we were talking. The SBU has eliminated the killers who murdered the security service colonel in Kyiv. The individuals resisted, offered armed resistance, fired shots, had grenades on them. They were neutralized and eliminated. I don't know, Dasha, what ultimatum Trump will present to Vladimir Putin. I don't know what will happen on the 14th. I don't know, and nobody knows what's going on in Trump's head. But I do know for sure that right now, an ultimatum has effectively been issued by Malyuk. And I understand that there will now be a very tough response from Malyuk, from the SBU, from Ukrainian special services, from Ukrainian intelligence for this murder, for the killing of the one-year-old boy in Kherson, and for the strike on the maternity hospital in Kharkiv. I don't know what must be going on in the minds of those scoundrels who give the orders and fire at maternity hospitals where women are giving birth. First it was Odessa, now it's Kharkiv. Lately, they're already striking maternity hospitals. So everything will be answered for 11 hours of strikes on Kyiv, for Lutsk, for Lviv, and so on down the list. There will be a major response. No one is going to tolerate this anymore. We've discussed for a long time whether there would be a Web 2.0. I don't know if there will be a Web 2.0, but it's more likely now that there will be a very tough strike, a harsh response against Moscow, against decision-making center. I think that Malyuk has, in fact, just now, before our eyes, delivered his ultimatum. And I think that Trump will deliver his own ultimatum on the 14th. And frankly, whether Trump says something or not, it doesn't really matter to us. It's not that we don't need it, it just doesn't make any difference. I wish everyone good health. I'll literally say a few words to comment on one event. This morning, the Security Service of Ukraine carried out the detention of an agent combat group of the FSB of the Russian Federation, who had been sent to Ukraine in advance, and 3 days ago committed the murder of an SBU officer, Colonel Ivan Ivanovich Voronich, our esteemed comrade, as a result of covert, investigative, and active counterintelligence measures. The enemy's hideout was discovered, and in the morning, active operations were carried out to detain them. They began to resist, there was an exchange of gunfire, and they were neutralized. I would like to remind you that
there is only one ultimate prospect for the enemy on the sovereign territory of Ukraine, and that is accordingly certain death. In addition, I want to sincerely thank the dedicated officers of the Criminal Investigation Department for their exceptional professionalism and unwavering support.
The head of the Security Service of Ukraine has made a statement. Please, while the trail is still hot, dear audience, we have shown it. Sasha, please.
Yes. So what I'm saying, Dasha, is that, first of all, this is already a clear and obvious signal from Malyuk that there will be a response, and a very tough one, and specifically in Moscow. And I think that in Moscow, they understand this perfectly well. Secondly, regarding Trump, continuing this topic, look, I don't know what Donald Trump will say, but whatever he says now, we are already seeing action. The green light has been given. All obstacles have been completely removed. Missiles are on their way. Drones will follow. And not just a few millions of drones, dozens of missiles, hundreds of missiles will be launched. And there will be strikes. This is already inevitable. This is already a given. It doesn't matter how Trump will use the money. The money will go, Patriots will go, shells, ammunition, missiles, weapons, everything will go. There are no more illusions in Washington regarding Vladimir Putin. There are no illusions that Vladimir Putin might agree to peace. He will be forced, and most likely he will be forced this year. and maybe even sooner than we can imagine.
Sasha, to sum up, a very important topic is actually the statement that for the first time since taking office, Trump is considering the possibility of allocating new funding for Ukraine. According to CBS News, this is $3.85 billion from the authorities that remain with the Trump-Biden administration. Moreover, Trump, as you mentioned at the very beginning, may allocate new funding to Ukraine of $5 billion from frozen Russian assets. But here's the main point. Is this the maximum, or will the Senate still pass by the end of July the bill on severe secondary sanctions against Russia, meaning sanctions on all countries that buy energy resources and raw materials from Russia?
The sanctions will be adopted with Trump's amendments directly. Trump will have in his hands the tools and mechanisms with which he can put pressure on China, India, and a number of other countries that buy from Russia or directly help Russia carry out black market schemes and the transfer of dual-use goods, both military and civilian, into Russia and so on. In other words, the flows will be shut down, the shadow fund will be closed, for the most part it will be closed. I assume they'll loosen the valves a bit in America and Saudi Arabia, and they'll deliberately crash the oil price. What else is very important, Dasha? So that's regarding the sanctions. There will be sanctions. There's no need to worry here. There will be sanctions. Trump will have the authority, Congress will approve everything, and so on. There will be sanctions. As for weapon systems, we need to understand that Trump has crossed a certain Rubicon. That was a red line for him. He didn't want to cross that line. He didn't want to send anything. He had already tried. He called Vladimir Putin 6 times, but nothing worked out. He proposed a meeting to Putin, but nothing worked out. He sent envoys to Putin officials, the Secretary of State, back then also the head of his Security Council. His intelligence officer, Shea, sent absolutely everyone. Nothing worked. Nothing. When we now discuss the issue of providing weapons to Ukraine, because in parallel to this, Trump, aside from Biden's package, is also allocating hundreds of millions of dollars to Ukraine from his own side. He is sending one Patriot system himself, and Norway and Germany, after coordinating with Trump, are sending another 2 or 3 Patriot systems. This is very expensive weaponry. This is the kind of weapon that recently saved Israel and will save Israel more than once in the future. So, Dasha, we are talking about a very important component right now. Donald Trump, the president of America, has crossed the red line for himself. He has crossed the Rubicon. We are talking about the fact that for the first time, Trump began providing Ukraine with very expensive weapon systems, very costly weaponry. This is just the beginning, and it is extremely important. In other words, this step has been taken. From now on, he will not turn back from this path. And this will directly affect the entire war, the course of hostilities, not in Putin's favor. Once again, friends, this is fine. The board has been flicked. Now everything is in Trump's hands. But one more very important point. No one is going to play games with Putin anymore. And Putin finds himself in a very difficult, I would even say, stalemate situation. August will be a black month for Russia and for Putin.
And we are getting closer to it. A brilliant analysis from Alexander Demchenko. Friends, our tandem Sasha plus Dasha works twice a week on my YouTube channel Dasha Shaslivaya, that's Tuesday and Sunday, and on the Mitro Gordon's YouTube channel Wednesday and Monday. So watch us and give us a like. Write a few kind words about our tandem. It means a lot. We work for an audience all over the world so that they know the truth about Russian aggression. Sasha, thank you so much and see you this Tuesday.
Until next time. Bye.